The galaxy was vast and ancient, a tapestry of countless species woven together over millennia. Among its countless stars lay alliances, coalitions, and rivalries, each species carving its place into the annals of history. Peace, though never more than fragile, had persisted for centuries, upheld by uneasy truces and silent agreements. Yet, in every era, there was always one power that pushed too far. For this age, that power was the Xerix dominion. The Xerix had once been conquerors of unparalleled might, their fleets cutting through the stars like predators in a sea of prey. With their ruthless efficiency and advanced technology, they crushed resistance, subjugated worlds, and demanded tribute from the weak. The Dominion thrived on fear, a weapon they wielded just as effectively as their particle cannons. Those who defied them were annihilated, and those who submitted were enslaved. Even as their empire stagnated in recent centuries, the Xerix retained their arrogance, their reputation cemented by generations of cruelty. The fragile peace of the galaxy was, in part, a reflection of this fear. The smaller powers cowered under the Xerix's shadow, and the larger coalitions, though capable of challenging them, found it easier to look the other way. Most species preferred coexistence over confrontation. Yet beneath the surface, resentment brewed, a silent fury waiting for the right moment to ignite. Into this delicate balance came humanity. A species no one had expected. First contact had been unremarkable. Humans were a backwater civilization, new to the galactic stage, lacking the technological prowess of the older species. They arrived late, centuries behind the galactic giants, with ships that seemed crude and tactics that appeared outdated. To the Xerix, they were laughable, weak, unworthy of respect. Yet there was something unsettling about humans. They were unpredictable, fiercely independent, and quick to adapt. Stories began to circulate of how they had outmaneuvered pirates in asteroid fields or reverse-engineered advanced tech with startling speed. These stories, however, were dismissed as exaggerations by most. After all, what could one species do against the might of the Dominion? It was this arrogance that led the Xerix to their greatest mistake. The provocation began as all such events did, with overconfidence. A human mining colony, isolated on the fringe of known space, became their target. The Xerix attacked without warning, their fleet descending upon the colony like wolves upon sheep. They vaporized the orbital defenses in minutes, obliterated the surface infrastructure, and left no survivors. To them, it was another demonstration of their dominance, a warning to the upstart species not to overstep its bounds. The act was not just brutal, it was deliberate. The Xerix made sure their actions were seen, transmitting the destruction to nearby systems as a message. The galaxy watched in silence, as it always did, unwilling to challenge the Dominion. Surely, they thought, the humans would cower, as so many had before them. Surely, they would retreat to the shadows, licking their wounds and praying not to draw further attention. But humanity did not cower. They did not retreat. In the wake of the attack, a response began to take shape, one that the Xerix and the galaxy at large could never have anticipated. Beneath the shock and mourning came a storm of fury, a collective resolve that united them in a way no outside force ever had. They would not be bullied. They would not let the deaths of their people go unanswered. The Xerix had made a fatal error. They had mistaken humanity's kindness for weakness, their patience for submission. And now, they would learn the truth. Humanity was far more than they had imagined, far more dangerous than they had ever feared. The galaxy had seen empires rise and fall, but it had never seen humanity in full force. Not yet. The Xerix, in their arrogance, had awakened something unstoppable. Something no one could put back to sleep. The room was silent, heavy with the weight of what had happened. Around the table sat the leaders of humanity, admirals, diplomats, scientists, and elected officials. They came from different nations, different ideologies, but in that moment, there was no division. The attack on the mining colony had done what centuries of diplomacy had struggled to achieve. It unified them. For once, humanity spoke with one voice. The debate was not whether to respond, but how. The brutality of the Xerix left no room for negotiation, no opportunity for compromise. The colony had been a civilian operation, its people miners and engineers, not soldiers. To slaughter them without provocation was a crime that demanded justice. And so, with grim determination, the decision was made. Humanity would go to war. It was a daunting prospect. The Xerix Dominion had ruled the stars for centuries, their fleet unmatched in size and power. To most, the idea of standing against them would have seemed suicidal. But humanity was different. They had been underestimated before, and they had survived. In their history, they had faced extinction, famine, and wars that nearly tore their own world apart. Each time, they had adapted. Each time, they had emerged stronger. Across Earth and its colonies, the call to arms went out. Factories that once produced commercial spacecraft were repurposed to build warships. Engineers worked day and night, retrofitting existing designs with cutting-edge modifications. What humanity lacked in advanced technology, they made up for in ingenuity. Old frigates were equipped with railguns capable of firing projectiles at near-light speeds. AI-guided drones, small and agile, were designed to swarm larger ships and exploit their weak points. Even asteroid mining equipment was adapted, turning mining lasers into weapons of surgical precision. Their fleet began to take shape, a patchwork of innovation and determination. It wasn't elegant, but it was effective. What the Xerix called crude, humanity called practical. Every ship, every weapon, was built with one purpose: to win. Behind the scenes, strategists worked tirelessly, analyzing Xerix battle formations and devising unconventional tactics. They knew they couldn't match the Dominion in sheer numbers or firepower, but they didn't need to. They only needed to outthink them. As humanity prepared, a message was sent to the Xerix Dominion. It was direct, almost audacious in its simplicity. Surrender, or face annihilation. The Xerix laughed. To them, it was the desperate bluff of a species out of its depth. Their arrogance blinded them to the truth, that humanity never made empty threats. The Dominion issued no reply. They simply ordered their fleets to prepare for what they assumed would be a swift and decisive campaign to crush the humans once and for all. But humanity was already several steps ahead. Across the galaxy, the pieces were falling into place. Supply lines were secured, alliances quietly courted, and neutral species warned to stay out of what was coming. On Earth, soldiers trained tirelessly, their resolve unshaken. Engineers tested weapons with clinical precision, ensuring they would not fail when the time came. Civilians volunteered in droves, eager to do their part, whether by manning ships or working in factories. It was a mobilization on a scale the galaxy had never seen. And yet, amidst the flurry of preparation, there was a quiet intensity. Every move was calculated, every decision deliberate. This wasn't a war humanity had sought, but it was one they were determined to finish. There was no room for doubt, no hesitation. The Xerix had forced their hand, and now they would face the consequences. As the first fleets prepared to launch, a sense of unity swept across humanity. Differences that had once divided them seemed insignificant in the face of the threat. They were no longer a collection of nations or colonies. They were one species, bound by a shared purpose. And that purpose was clear: survival, vengeance, and the defense of their future. The galaxy watched in silence as the storm gathered. For many, humanity's efforts seemed futile. They were seen as newcomers, untested and unproven. But those who looked closer began to sense something different. There was a fire in humanity, a relentless drive that couldn't be quantified or predicted. It was a force the Xerix had failed to account for, a force that would soon shake the galaxy to its core. The final preparations were made. Ships docked in orbital yards gleamed under the light of distant suns, their crews boarding with a sense of purpose. Messages from loved ones were exchanged, not with fear but with resolve. This wasn't a fight they had chosen, but it was one they would finish. And as the fleets began their journey, a single phrase echoed across the vastness of human communication networks, spoken in countless languages but carrying the same meaning. When humanity marches to war, they march as one. The first strike came without warning. A Xerix supply depot, hidden in the orbit of a gas giant, was obliterated by a swarm of projectiles. The attackers were not conventional missiles but repurposed asteroids, hurled with precision through carefully calculated slingshot trajectories. By the time the Xerix realized what had happened, their depot was reduced to dust. In its wake, a single broadcast was left behind. "This is only the beginning." Humanity's opening moves were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They didn't attack in the traditional sense, with massive fleets and head-on engagements. Instead, they struck where the Xerix were weakest: supply lines, communications hubs, and isolated outposts. These were not random acts of defiance but carefully orchestrated operations designed to destabilize and disorient the Dominion. Xerix ships found their navigation systems scrambled, hacked by human algorithms that seemed to anticipate their every move. Entire fleets were lured into traps, where drones armed with high-yield explosives swarmed their most vulnerable ships. When the Xerix attempted to regroup, they found themselves blind, their communications intercepted or replaced with false signals. Their response was sluggish, their arrogance having left them unprepared for this level of ingenuity. The Xerix's frustration turned to alarm as the attacks escalated. Human forces didn't seek prolonged battles. They struck quickly and faded into the void, leaving only wreckage behind. To the Dominion, it was chaos. To humanity, it was strategy, a carefully calculated campaign to dismantle the Xerix piece by piece. On the ground, the Xerix learned a harder lesson: humans didn't break. In skirmishes on contested worlds, human soldiers fought with a tenacity that stunned their enemies. Against overwhelming odds, they held their ground, their movements precise and coordinated. They used the terrain to their advantage, setting traps and ambushes that turned the Xerix's superior numbers into a liability. A Xerix officer, captured in one such skirmish, could only stare in disbelief. "We outnumbered them 5-1, he muttered. "They should have run." "Why didn't they run?" The answer was simple: humanity didn't know how to quit. Observers from neutral species watched in awe, their long-held assumptions about humans shattered. They had expected desperation, perhaps even surrender. What they saw instead was a species that fought like nothing they had ever encountered, adaptive, relentless, and utterly unyielding. For the first time, whispers began to spread among the neutral factions. Perhaps the Xerix had made a mistake. Humanity didn't just fight on the battlefield, they waged war on the mind. Across the galaxy, they broadcast their victories, letting the Dominion and everyone else see the might of their retaliation. Images of shattered Xerix fleets and defeated ground forces spread like wildfire, accompanied by a single chilling message: "You started this. We will end it." The psychological toll on the Xerix was immense. Soldiers began to hesitate, their fear undermining their discipline. Civilians, once proud of their empire's might, started to question whether the Dominion could truly win. The arrogance that had defined the Xerix for centuries was crumbling, replaced by a growing sense of dread. Yet the Dominion was far from defeated. Angered and humiliated, they regrouped, assembling a massive counteroffensive. Their fleets moved with renewed purpose, targeting human strongholds with overwhelming force. On the surface, it seemed like the tide was turning. But humanity was ready. Adaptability had always been their greatest strength, and they used it now to devastating effect. The Xerix's massive formations, so effective against traditional foes, became liabilities when faced with humanity's hit-and-run tactics. Human fleets baited them into ambushes, using decoy ships and false signals to lure them into kill zones. When the Xerix attempted to press their advantage, they found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. On the ground, the counteroffensive met similar resistance. Human forces adapted their strategies in real time, exploiting every weakness in the Xerix's approach. Where the Dominion expected fear, they found defiance. Where they expected retreat, they found unyielding resolve. The Xerix's frustration boiled over as they failed to achieve a decisive victory. Their leaders, once confident of humanity's defeat, began to realize the scale of their error. They had provoked a species that refused to break, a species that thrived under pressure. As the war raged on, one truth became increasingly clear: humanity had nothing to lose. Their survival depended on total victory, and they fought like it. A cornered species fights hardest, the narrator reflected. And humanity, pushed to the brink, was proving just how dangerous it could be. The Xerix Dominion, battered but unbowed, gathered their remaining strength for a final stand. Every ship, every soldier, and every ounce of their technological might was marshaled into the largest fleet they had ever assembled. To the Dominion, this was not just a battle, it was a statement. They would crush humanity and erase the stain of humiliation from their history. Their leaders, driven by desperation and pride, declared it the last battle humanity would ever fight. Humanity met this challenge with a quiet, unshakable resolve. Their fleet, though smaller, was a masterpiece of ingenuity and determination. Every ship carried the scars of war but also the lessons learned from it. Their tactics had been honed through countless skirmishes, and their will had only grown stronger. The fleet was not just a collection of ships, it was a testament to the unity and resilience that humanity had forged in the face of annihilation. When the fleets met, the void between the stars lit up with fire. The Xerix, confident in their numerical superiority, moved in massive formations, aiming to overwhelm humanity through sheer force. But humanity fought on their terms, not the Dominion's. Smaller, faster ships darted between the Xerix's capital vessels, using precision strikes to cripple engines and weapons systems. Swarms of AI-guided drones harried the Xerix lines, forcing their ships to divert power to point defenses. Amid the chaos, humanity revealed a new weapon, enormous railgun platforms hidden in asteroid belts, capable of firing projectiles that tore through Xerix ships like paper. The Dominion fleet, once an unassailable wall of firepower, began to falter under the relentless assault. Still, the Xerix pressed on, their pride refusing to let them retreat. The battle reached its crescendo when humanity made its boldest move yet. A key fleet of human ships, led by one of their most decorated admirals, charged directly into the heart of the Xerix formation. It was a suicide mission, designed not to survive but to break the Dominion's momentum. The Xerix, momentarily stunned by the audacity of the maneuver, turned their guns on the advancing fleet. The human ships fought with unmatched ferocity, taking out key Xerix vessels even as they were destroyed one by one. The sacrifice worked. The Xerix formation shattered, their once cohesive fleet now splintered and vulnerable. Humanity seized the moment, unleashing a coordinated assault that devastated the remaining Dominion forces. The void was filled with the wreckage of Xerix ships, a graveyard of their arrogance and overconfidence. While the battle raged in space, humanity's ground forces launched their own campaign on a Xerix capital planet. The Dominion had fortified it, believing it to be impenetrable. But humanity had no intention of fighting on the Xerix's terms. They landed behind enemy lines, using stealth technology and precise coordination to bypass the heaviest defenses. Once on the ground, they moved like a tidal wave, their soldiers refusing to yield even an inch. The Xerix defenders, though experienced and well-armed, were overwhelmed by the sheer determination of humanity's forces. For every human soldier that fell, another took their place, driven by the memory of the colony the Xerix had destroyed and the countless lives they had taken. Individual acts of heroism became the stuff of legend, soldiers holding choke points against impossible odds, medics risking their lives to save comrades, and engineers repurposing enemy equipment to turn the tide of battle. In the skies above, humanity's victory in space ensured that reinforcements and supplies flowed unimpeded to the ground forces. The Xerix, now isolated and outmaneuvered, found themselves cornered on their own planet. Their leaders, once so confident, were faced with a grim reality. Their empire was falling, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The final blow came when humanity breached the Xerix command center. It wasn't a simple victory, it was a statement. The Xerix leadership was captured, their symbols of power dismantled, and their communication systems used to broadcast the end of their reign. The message was clear: the Dominion was no more. As the dust settled, humanity's forces stood victorious. The Xerix Empire, once a symbol of terror, was reduced to ruins. Their fleets were scattered, their worlds liberated, and their influence erased from the galaxy. Humanity didn't just defeat the Xerix. they ensured that such an empire could never rise again. And so, the galaxy watched as humanity emerged from the fires of war, not as victims but as victors. They had faced one of the most powerful empires in history and triumphed through sheer will, ingenuity, and unity. The Xerics had believed themselves invincible, but they had learned the hard way what it meant to provoke humanity. In the aftermath, a single message echoed across the stars, a warning and a promise. The galaxy learned what happens when you provoke humanity. The war's fires had burned out, leaving a galaxy forever changed. The Xerics' dominion, once a monolithic empire of fear and dominance, was now a broken shadow of its former self. Forced to sign a humiliating treaty, they ceded control of countless worlds, disbanded their fleets, and swore to never again threaten another species. Their leaders, the architects of their hubris, were publicly tried and sentenced. For the first time in millennia, the Xerics had become what they once despised: vulnerable. Humanity, victorious but weary, turned not to conquest but to rebuilding. On the worlds the Xerics had subjugated, human engineers and relief teams worked tirelessly to restore what had been lost. They extended aid to neutral species affected by the chaos of war, providing food, medical supplies, and technology. This wasn't mere charity, it was a declaration of intent. Humanity wanted the galaxy to know they weren't conquerors. They were something different. The neutral species, long accustomed to the Xerics' dominance, watched with a mixture of admiration and unease. Some saw humanity as saviors, their actions a beacon of hope in a galaxy that had known too much fear. Others, however, viewed their sudden rise with suspicion. If a species so new to the galactic stage could defeat the mighty Xerics, what else were they capable of? Quiet debates spread across neutral councils. Humanity had changed the balance of power, and the galaxy would never be the same. Amid the rebuilding, humanity reflected inward. The cost of victory was steep. Millions had been lost, and entire colonies lay in ruins. Monuments were erected, not to glorify war but to honor those who had sacrificed everything. On Earth, the birthplace of their resilience, a solemn gathering of leaders stood before the galaxy's representatives. They spoke not of triumph but of resolve. "This war was not of our choosing," a human leader declared. "We do not seek conflict, but we will not shy away when our survival is threatened. Let this be a reminder: humanity fights only when it must, but when we do not lose." The words echoed across the stars, a promise and a warning. Humanity was no longer the upstart species dismissed as primitive and inconsequential. They had earned their place in the galaxy, not through diplomacy or assimilation, but through fire and blood. For the Xerics, the consequences were permanent. Their empire dismantled, they were left to rebuild in the shadow of their defeat. Other species watched them closely, ensuring they could never rise to power again. The lessons humanity had taught them were etched into their culture, a reminder of their arrogance, and the price it had demanded. The galaxy itself seemed to breathe easier. Without the Xerics' iron grip, trade routes reopened, alliances flourished, and species once paralyzed by fear found the courage to reclaim their independence. Yet, beneath the surface, the question lingered: what role would humanity play in this new order? For humanity, the answer was clear. They had no interest in becoming another empire or wielding the fear the Xerics once commanded. Instead, they sought a galaxy united in mutual respect. Their message was simple: peace through strength, and strength tempered by wisdom. In the final days of the war, a narrator reflects on what the galaxy had learned. Humanity's rise was not about power or conquest. It was about survival, unity, and an unyielding spirit. They had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, a species could rise above fear and forge its own destiny. And so, the galaxy settled into a new era, shaped by humanity's legacy. The last species that provoked humanity had been taught a lesson, one the galaxy would never forget.